Okay, so welcome again. Welcome everybody, welcome our viewers on Torah Anytime. We're going to cover several interesting, fascinating Shailos, and Bez Hashem Yisparach will be able to achieve and accomplish, cover a lot of ground. So the first Shailot that came up is about somebody who overslept. Unfortunately, it's a crime that many of us are guilty of at some time or another, where we oversleep. And this particular fellow, because he overslept, it would be impossible for him to get to work on time and also be at Minyan. So he wanted to know what he should do in such a case. Should he be late for work but be penalized, or should he miss Minyan? Very interesting dilemma to face. And it's interesting because the Shulchan Aruch in Orach Chaim Siman Sadik, where he speaks about participating in Minyan, he says Yishtadel, uses the lashon Yishtadel. A person should make every effort in order to participate in Minyan. There are some Rishonim that want to deduce from it's actually Latter-day authorities that want to deduce from the fact that he says Yishtadel that maybe it means that Minyan is not an absolute requirement. However, Moshe, the Igros Moshe, or Moshe Feinstein says that Minyan is of utmost importance and that one should not deduce from the language Yishtadel that it's not critical importance. And attending a Minyan is critical importance. As a matter of fact, the Rambam speaks about the importance of being in a Minyan, and it's brought down. It said that the Rebbeinu Shalom, even the Rebbeinu Shalom, will not accept somebody's tefillos, will not accept somebody's prayers. We're not attending a Minyan. He does not despise the tefillos of anybody that's part of a Minyan. In other words, that even if normally he would repel, even if normally the Rebbeinu Shalom would, in a sense, not heed or not listen to a davening, when it comes to a Minyan, it's very, very holy to be part of a Minyan. And there's special schools, there's special benefits of being part of a Minyan that a person cannot achieve when he davens b'yechidus, when he davens alone. So one should not think that because the Shulchan Aruch uses the word lashon yishtadel that he should make an effort, that it's something that he could pick or choose. No, it's very, very important. As a matter of fact, even though attending a Minyan is only a mitzvah d'Rabbanan, is only a rabbinic mitzvah, one can fulfill the mitzvah d'Oraisa, v'nikdashti b'soch b'nei Yisrael, that you could sanctify God's name amongst Klal Yisrael, because by saying Kedusha and Baruch Hu, you're sanctifying Hashem's name, so you fulfill the mitzvah d'Oraisa. Now, the halacha is like this. The halacha is that there are certain occasions when a person is allowed to not participate in a Minyan, not attend a Minyan. What are those cases? So the cases are, for example, if a person is fearful, a person is concerned that he's not going to have guf naki, that he has, let's say, stomach trouble, or that he has to use the lavatory, the restroom, and he hasn't used it yet. And the halacha is that a person has to use a person has to daven when he's clean, when he has a guf naki, and if a person has to use the bathroom, he shouldn't daven. So if a person is mashayr, a person weighs out, a person calculates that if attending a Minyan would mean that he would not have a guf naki, then it's better for him to daven b'yechid. It's better for him to daven without a Minyan. That's one criteria. And another criteria is the fact that if a person is going to daven without proper decorum, for example, a person is going to daven without wearing a jacket or a hat, a person is going to daven and the person doesn't have his best appearance as far as davening wise, as far as having ema, as far as having the proper decorum for Hashem, then also if a person would have his hat or jacket in his house, but he can't attain it, and in the Minyan, then he does not have to attend a Minyan, doesn't have to participate in a Minyan. It shows you the importance, by the way, of davening with a certain measure of kavod rosh. Called kavod rosh means that a person should daven with a certain measure of reverence and deference to Hashem. And reverence and deference means to Hashem means that if you're going to attend the White House, whether you like the president, you don't like the president, but if you attend the White House, you're going to be in the White House and you're going to wear your finest. And so to go to the Rebbeinu Shalom, to go daven in shul without wearing your finest, on Shabbos Yontif, obviously we're totally bedecked in very beautiful clothing. You don't have to do that during the week. That at least we should be presentable and we should have a measure of respect. So that's another exception as far as wearing the right clothing. Another exception would be that you could attend a minyan, but you don't have your tefillin yet, and there's no spare tefillin in the shul. However, if you daven b'yechidus, then if you daven alone in your house, then you'll have your tefillin. You'll be able to daven with tefillin. So halacha is that better to wear tefillin during davening than to daven with a minyan. Even though that means that you're going to be missing the minyan, but better to wear your tefillin because you say Kriya Shema, you daven Shemona Esrei, you should be having tefillin with you. You should be wearing your tefillin. So that's another exception. And the Mishnah Berurah does bring down that if a person not feeling well, even if a person chas v'shalom, let's say a person is not, chayil mesukkan. Of course, a chayil mesukkan is pater for most mitzvahs that he's in danger. We're talking about even a chayil shem bar sakana. Of course, a chayil shem bar sakana also would not have to participate in minyan. But even if somebody who's chalash begufay, he's weak, he's not feeling well. And perhaps it would exacerbate the situation by going outside. Let's say he has a bad cold. So obviously he's not a cholish ein mesukkan. He's certainly not a cholish mesukkan, but he's cholish. He's weak. He's got a bad cold, and he's not. You didn't have to act out a bad cold, Came up just the right time, right? So if he has a bad cold or something to that effect. Now it's getting contagious here. What's going on? Everybody's coughing. They say one person coughs in the audience, everyone starts coughing. It becomes like something, programmed, Anyhow, it's contagious. So if a person's not feeling well, again, don't use this. First of all, listen, if you have germs, it's an avera to go ahead and to go to shul to you don't know. There are people in shul that have lower immune systems than you do. They have compromised immune systems. You don't know. Not everybody discloses their, what their health situations are. They're not, going to broadcast and put a placard or put a sign on their body and say, chas v'shalom, I have this situation, this medical situation. There are people with compromised immune systems. And you go to shul and you start sneezing and coughing and you have an infection or something, or you have a virus, you could spread germs. And that's an avera. It's avera to be mazik somebody. That's hezek. You're causing somebody damage. Most people are not familiar with that. The same way smoking, secondhand smoke can kill people or can cause people to have an infection or something to that degree. So too, if you go to shul with germs, you're harming somebody. You're causing somebody hezek, you're causing somebody damage. So better not to go to shul if you're sick. Again, if you're not sure if you're on that degree of sickness, then ask a Shailot, of course. Don't take it for granted and think you have a blanket exemption not to go to shul. It's not, take your vitamin C's and drink hot tea and get enough sleep and eat right and hopefully you'll be okay. But it's not a mitzvah to ever to harm anybody else. But if a person is cholish begufa, if a person is not feeling well, then he does not have to go to minyan, technically speaking. But again, this is not something that a person should say, well, I heard the rabbi say that, if you're not feeling 100%, you don't have to go to shul. So it's not something that we should necessarily tell other people. It's not something that we should just use as a blanket dispensation or exemption and take a full liberty with it. Okay, now let's get back to the Shailot. So the Shailot was that somebody is late for work, and if he goes to minyan, if he goes to, let's say, he's late for work, he goes to 8:30 minyan, he goes to 9 o'clock minyan, the 8:45 minyan, these great minyanim that they have, all over the place, for the late birds, all right, the late bird special, he would be late for work, and he may be penalized by his boss. Does he have to go to minyan or not? We said that going to minyan is very important, is very critical. And a lot of tefillas are not accepted if you're not in a minyan. So do you have to go to work or do you have to go to minyan? What's the halacha? So the Mishnah Berurah says that you're not obligated, you're not chayiv to have a hefsed, to have a loss, to take a loss from your employment, from your parnasa, from your income, in order to attend minyan. And therefore, if a person will take a hit in his job, he'll have a hefsid. He's not obligated then to go to work. Obviously, he's not obligated to go to minyan then. He should go to work, and he should daven b'yechidus, because hopefully he could do that in a little more expedited fashion, but should be on time for work. That's what Mishnah Berurah says. However, there's the following caveat. The poskim say that if he can make it up, if he could go to work and make up the lost time at work later on. So let's say he has a job that's 9 to 6:30, and he's able to stay from 6:30 to 7 to make up the time that he had to attend Minyan because he got to work at 9:30 as opposed to getting there at 9 o'clock. Then he's obligated, he's mechuyev to do that. He shouldn't just say, well, if I'm going to take a hit because I'm going to lose income, because I'm going to be penalized, I'm going to have a financial loss, a hefsid, when it doesn't have to be hefsid meruba. The person don't say it's a hefsid meruba. They don't quantify and they really don't qualify exactly the amount of money, so it seems to be relative to the person. However, the Piskei Teshuvos brings down a very interesting yesod, foundation. He says that the person has to be honest and has to introspect. The person has to say to himself, well, for something else in my life, would I be willing to have that financial loss? If let's say I had a family commitment and I had to be late for work, would I be willing to be late for work and take that financial loss? Or let's say, something recreational. Let's say I was invited to have, some fun and I was going to take that loss. If you were going to take that loss anyhow, then if you're not taking that loss for Minyan, you are a bad Jew. And you are a hypocrite. And you're a faker. So don't ever become a hypocrite, faker, a bad Jew. So you have to be honest. Now this is something that is very subjective and very relative. And this is something where you have to really be honest with yourself. And you can't be deceitful, you can't be deceptive, and you can't be where you're a duplicitous person. You can't be a two-faced person. So again, if you're going to be late for work and you're going to sustain some kind of loss, you don't have to go to Minyan. But for that same expenditure, that same financial loss, you would have sustained it happily for something else, then don't do it. Then go to Minyan and be late for work. But again, if you could compensate later on, your boss says, you know what, you missed that half an hour in the morning, you could stay later, or you don't have to stay late, you could work remotely or virtually from home later on, as long as you make it up, then you're chayiv to go ahead and make it up, and to attend Minyan in the morning. Okay, that's the halacha. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does say that Minias Revach is different than Hefsid. Minias Revach means that you're not sustaining a direct financial loss. It's more indirect, it's more causative. For example, you could make a profit. You can make a profit. If I don't go to Minyan, I stand the chance of doing some day trading, and I could bet on a stock, and that stock could produce yields and dividends, and I can make some money. If I don't go to shul, I could call a prospective client to solicit a new account. But that's Minias Revach. That's a future. That is not sustaining a direct financial loss. Direct financial loss means you're supposed to be there at your job at 8 o'clock, and you weren't at your job at 8 o'clock, and therefore your salary is being diminished. Your salary is being reduced. That's hefsid. As a matter of fact, the Mishnah Berurah, he's not a storyteller, but sometimes he brings down fascinating insights. He tells a story of Reb Zalman of Hamburg. Reb Zalman of Hamburg was a famous chief rabbi, a great gadol, famous chief rabbi of 3 cities in Germany. And not only that, but he was famous because he was none other than the Chacham Tzvi Ashkenazi. He was his father-in-law, the grandfather of Yaakov Ebden. Right? Can you get better than that? Right? Not only that, he had 25 kiddush. He had 25 children. I'm not going to tell you how many wives he had. No. Some assumption is, I think that his first wife passed away, so maybe it was, I don't know if it was from one wife or to his second wife also, 25 kids. Whatever it was, 25 kids to support. Can you imagine? Tuitions and chasanas and bar mitzvahs and 25 kids. Kanai Nahara. Anyhow, so he tells it, there's a story that the post can bring down the story that he was once bedecked with his talis and tefillin. He was walking to shul, and a guy comes over to him. This guy was a diamond dealer, it seems, jewelry. And he said to Rav Zalman Hamburg, I guess, was a big gadol, but maybe also did some business on the side. And he said to him, he says, listen, I have these jewels that you could sell for such a handsome profit. You can make a fortune. And Rav Zalman Hamburg said, I have to be in Minyan on time. And if I start negotiating and I start making calculations and doing this business deal, it may jeopardize my attendance in Minyan. And he said, you know what? He says, I can't talk to you now. I'm sorry. After the Minyan, after davening. And he was sacrificing potentially a huge fortune. But davening is davening. The fact is that Chacham Eina Barosha, a person should always understand that when you daven, it's like a free shopping spree. You know, you're getting millions, you're getting zillions. You know, you're asking for everything you need in your life. That's not something we should ever forfeit. It's not something we should ever give up. Everything else is temporal. Everything else is transient. Everything else is finite. Davening is infinite. So the guy went ahead and said, I'm sorry then. He says, I'm not coming back to you. And the guy went to someone else. He sold him the jewels, and the man made a fortune. When Rav Zalman Hamburg found out, he was elated. He said, wow, I had the schus of giving up so much money for the right thing, for davening. He says, there could be nothing greater, there could be nothing better. So the Mishnah Berurah brings down the story. L'chara, pashtus, it's only a proof for minias revach, for the fact that you can make more money on something. Hefsedo, if he would have sustained a direct loss, perhaps Rav Zalman Hamburg would have missed Minyan. We don't know for sure how he would have proceeded and operated in that situation. But as far as a person who can't make it to Minyan, who has a legitimate excuse, whether it's chalosh begufay, whether it's that he didn't have his tefillin, whether it was that he didn't have his hat and jacket, or that he was going to sustain a hefsid, a loss, by not going to work. So the halacha is, the Shulchan Aruch says, says he should focus, he should laser beam his focus, that when the minyan is davening, if he can't make it to the minyan, if he's at home, wherever he is, he should stand at home and daven. He should, with precision, the same time that they're davening in the shul. So let's say it's mincha, and you know, at mincha they're davening at 4:30, and he can't make it to mincha. By the way, there were gedolim, and this is brought down in the Rishonim, that if somebody says that I can concentrate better without attending a minyan, because I can have more kavanas. Now, I use the Siddur Rishash, not me, I don't mean personally, I don't use the Siddur Rishash. And if I did, I wouldn't tell you about it, all right? This is Rishash of Shalom Sharabi, that it was the famous Siddur where it gives you all the shemas and the kavanas for the davening. So the person says, listen, you know, everybody in the shul, they're all in a rush. They're all Russian. All these Jews are Russian, right? They're American Russian Jews. Rushing. Everybody's rushing, okay? He says, so, you know, I can't concentrate. They don't daven with a fervor. They don't daven with an intensity. Rabbi say, Zolan, you should know that davening is so sacred. We said on Friday night here, we said that Rav Chaim Kanievsky gave a haftacha, I think it was haftacha, that a shul, that there's no talking during davening, they have shmirah, they have protection. So davening is not a joke. And I've been to shuls where I was ashamed to be present. Mamash. I ran out. I didn't make a scene. I didn't make a macha. I didn't make any protest. I just very, very unceremoniously slipped out. And with a very heavy heart. Because the bizayon for the Rebbeinu Shalom is terrible. It's a disgrace. And that's how davening is. You're talking to God. Talking to God. You know, if you have a solemn type of attitude when you're dealing with a government official, how much more so? Rebbeinu Shalom. Say b'shem Rav Avigdor Miller, that's all that he said, that if there's talking or there's inappropriate behavior during davening, he says the tefillos are not answered at all. And they said that there was somebody that Nebuch the child had the machla, Yena machla, and the disease, the terrible disease. And Rav Miller said, you're davening the wrong shul, your tefillos will never be answered. You know? So it's something very, very serious, very serious. But as far as a person saying, I can't have the right kavanas, most poskim today bring down, most Shalz Tshuvas bring down, that we're not on the level today of having the right kavanas, and the person should not excuse himself from davening the minyan because he said he can't concentrate. Now, if there's a situation where, let's say, somebody once asked me that he's allergic to something in the shul. He's not allergic to the rabbi, Baruch Hashem. He's not allergic to the gabbai. But he's allergic not to someone, to something. I told him he doesn't have to daven. He doesn't know. This is not something, again, everybody has to ask their own Shailot. But in this situation, I told him he doesn't have to daven. Obviously, he should try to find another shul. Depends. Maybe he doesn't live in Brooklyn, though, right? Where there's a dime a dozen, right? But there are situations when there are parskim that the Chuvas on Hargus brings down, the Shevet Levi brings down, the Yugos Moshe has a tshuva, if I'm not mistaken, about it as well. Okay, but if you can't make it to Minyan, if you have a legitimate bona fide excuse, and not that you just want to go on vacation, and you're going to go to a place like the Caribbean or something, that's a whole nother shaila just about the modesty there. I don't know, I've never been there. But you have to choose a vacation like a Torah Jew. Torah doesn't go on vacation, and you have to be a Ben Torah, a Bas Torah, wherever a person is. So, but if you're strategizing, if you're configuring and plotting a vacation and it doesn't have a place where there's a shul, I don't know. It's a big Shailot. Very, very. We've discussed this in the past. Big Shailot. If you're allowed to go, if you're allowed to be there, big Shailot. I'm not poskening right now that Shailot. I'm just telling you that there's a big Shailot. So if you're not in a place where there's a minyan or you can't go to minyans, you have to program your davening time to be the same time as the shul's davening. Okay. Now, that's a halacha. And by the way, the Mishnah Berurah, if I'm not mistaken, the Mishnah Berurah paskins that it's better for you to daven in your house the same time that the shul will be davening than to go to the shul and daven b'yechidus when they're not davening. Yeah, is that clear? Okay. Even though the Kedusha of Beis HaKnesses, by the way, a lot of times now, it's becoming very rampant, unfortunately, house minyans. It's popping up left and right, okay? So they say, that every shul in Borough Park has, every block has 5 shuls. Now it's getting even more because people are making minyanim in their homes so they don't have to go to shul. Motzei Shabbos, Friday nights, it's cold, I don't want to leave, I don't want to go outside, I'll go on my block. It's a big shaila. The Gemara says that if you don't go to the shul in your neighborhood, you call the shochen ra. That's one thing. It's a terrible insult to be called. It's almost a klala, chas v'shalom. It says also, b'roivam hachas melch, you're supposed to stand with a multitude, it's not supposed to stand with a minority of people. It's another very big problem. And the other problem is Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. A temporary setting does not have Kedushas Beis HaKnesses. There are even some tefillas you're not allowed to say. Big Shailot. What? Sefer Torah as well. Big Shailot. Big Shailot. So again, if a person, let's say, is a choyle and he needs chizuk, he's not well, he's disabled, he's impaired, and he needs a minyan in his house, or he's handicapped in order to mechazik him. Okay, so maybe it's a different shaila, maybe it's a different scenario, different situation. I'm not going to discuss that right now. But as far as these, these house minyans, not the best thing for Klal Yisrael probably. Okay. Now, Rabbi Yashiv though says something very interesting. Rabbi Yashiv in a tshuva says that it doesn't dafka mean, if you have to program yourself, okay, let's say again, you miss Mincha. Mincha's 4:30. Be'erach right now, Mincha's like 4:25, right around somewhere around there, getting close to 4:30. So you can daven in your house, what?
Well, I was thinking it was 4:30.
Yeah, so you can daven in your house at 4:30. Yeah, you daven in your house at 4:30. Okay, which shul are you choosing? So the Rabbi Yashiv paskins, that's not dafka the shul that's closest to you. Let's say you have a shul on your block. It doesn't have to be the shul on your block. But any shul that's within the tchum, in other words, what's in proximity of your house, that's in the neighborhood. So, for example, if the shul on your block doesn't daven by shkia because of Hasidish, you're supposed to daven by shkia. As a matter of fact, there are many poskim that hold. It's brought down. Shlomo Zalman in the Halacha Shlomo, if I'm not mistaken, that it's better to daven with the minyan before shkia than daven after shkia.
You mean daven alone?
Daven alone. I'm sorry, daven alone without a minyan. Thank you. Right before shkia, then to daven with a minyan after shkia. Right. Okay, something to take into account. But anyhow, so what?
In America, you might have a little leeway.
Well, it depends how many minutes.
Right, I'm saying.
Yeah, up to 7 minutes. So ask a shaila. Always ask a shaila. It's not a blanket. Just not a blanket. I'm sorry, ask a shaila. But
according to that their davening mincha after shkia is l'hachila. That's their minhag.
Yeah. So if, let's say you have a shul in your house that davens later. So you don't have to precision, you don't have to program yourself. As long as it's a shul in the neighborhood, you're allowed to do it. But Rabbi Yasha makes an interesting statement. He says, except that where there are many minyanim. He says, let's say there's a shul that has like 100 minyan, minyan factory, right? We're accustomed to minyan factories. He says the shul of the minyan factory, he says that's not the ideal situation where you can go ahead and program yourself to daven at any time. So really, l'chatchila, there should be that you're davening at 4:30, you're davening a place that's more kavua for you. So to know that, there's normally a place where you daven at 4:30, or let's say Marav. So not that when you daven at 7, 7:30, 8 is every half an hour or every 15 minutes is another minyan. If you know that you go to 9 o'clock Marav, you go to 10 o'clock Marav, that's when you should daven the Marav. And to be Yotzei, you can be Yotzei, Tefillah B'tzibur, Kamat. Imagine that. Tefillah B'tzibur, by the way, means Shemona Esrei. That's halacha. So Rosh Shlomo Zalman says that, and by the way, in Kelm, they used to do this, and this is what we do over here in BJX. We're not like Kelm, Halavai, say, but we try. So what we do is that the Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur, when he says Gal Yisrael, a lot of places they make him, it's a big machloikas, a poskim about this, and some poskim are very vehement and adamant that it's a big mistake what people do, that the Chazan, the Shliach Tzibur, he says Gal Yisrael quietly. Really, the best thing to do, according to most poskim, is that the Shliach Tzibur and the Kihilo, the Kahal, should say Gal Yisrael together. That's why on Shabbos here in Yontif we sing it to make sure that everybody finishes at the same exact time, and therefore everybody is starting Shemon Esrei, because the only two way you can be Yotzei Tefillah B'tzibur is if everyone simultaneously begins the Hashem Savosei Tiftach and Baruch Atah Hashem and Shemon Esrei together, mamash together. However, Shlomo Zalman does say, and it seems to be that Ramosha also held like this, that if you start Shemon Esrei a few moments after the Shliach Tzibur, you could still be Yotzei Tefillah B'tzibur. Some say even, well, if he's, let's say, already holding that, the Shliach Tzibur is already holding by Moedin in his Tefillah B'lachash, and so you're really far behind. As long as he's still within the Shemona Esrei, it's not so poshut. Not everybody holds like that. So it's always better to be Tefillah B'tzibur, to say it that you say it together.
Right.
Yeah.
What about the same thing with the? Let's say you say the Shema slower than everybody else. Can you start it before everybody else so you finish together?
Right. It's better if you're going to say. It's better to say Shemona Esrei with everybody to synchronize your davening.
To end it.
Yeah.
So you can't.
So you can say Shemona Esrei. All right. So Rav Chaim Kanievsky, by the way, Paskin. Somebody asked him that he davens a long Shemona Esrei, and he never makes it for kedusha, because by the time the Chazan begins kedusha, he's still in the middle of Shema Kaleinu, and he's davening for every chayla in Klal Yisrael. It's beautiful, right? But he says that now obviously a person, fanaticism and extremism is never good. A person shouldn't daven a whole hour Shemona Esrei necessarily during the week. It means the guy probably doesn't have a job, and he should work on getting it. I'm saying something's. Most people don't have that luxury. Okay, maybe he does. Maybe he's in real estate, and he has time during the day. So that's Gavaldi. So Baruch Chaim said that even though kedusha is so important, you say kadosh, 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 right? It's so important. He said, but if you daven Shemona Esrei and you're doing it with kavanah, and you're not, doing something that's again fanatical, then you don't have to finish Shemona Esrei. You don't have to rush your Shemona Esrei in order to say kedusha with everybody else.
You shouldn't start it early, right?
No, you can't start because you're not getting Tefillah B'tzibur, right? Exactly. Now, okay.
You can say Kedusha in the middle?
No, can't.
Oh.
Can't.
No,
But you should stop. I mean, what you should do is you should stop and have in zin, have in mind, right? But that's not, according to some poskim, you're not getting the full benefit.
how about if this shul happens so fast, by the time the guy himself would be up to At HaKadosh, the shul would be already up to Kadosh and Shatz with Kedusha. Yeah, is he allowed to answer Kedusha?
But where's he holding?
By Mechai Mason. He started.
If he starts at the same, the halacha is that
10 minutes.
no, but the halacha is that if he starts at the same time as the Shliach Tzibur, he gets late, and he starts at the same time as the Chazan.
He's starting at the same time as the whole Tzibur. But
Some shul, they're very...
I see.
He's already finished Mansri, and he's starting Kedusha.
What is it?
So, I'm asking, is that could you answer Kedusha?
Right, so I saw one time from Rav Chaim, that Rav Chaim says that even if you, because the halacha is that, let's say you get into shul, and you're late, and they started already Shemona Esrei, so you start Shemona Esrei with the Shliach Tzibur, and then you could say Kedusha with him. So he says that even if you didn't exactly start with him, and there was a lapse of time, then you could still say Kedusha as long as you catch up. You could say Kedusha. But this, I don't know. I never saw a psak on that. What? So l'chara there wouldn't, but I can't say b'vadois. I'm not 100% certain. Yeah. Okay. Next. So it's clear. Let's just recap very, very quickly. If a person is late for work, they do not have to go to Minyan if they're going to have a financial loss. But if that same financial loss they're willing to take for recreation, leisure, or for a family thing, whatever it was, then they have to go to work. And they should certainly try to see if that they have the leeway and flexibility of making it up with their boss afterwards so that they could attend Minyan. But that's the halacha. So a person, because it's a Rabbanon, Minyan is Rabbanon, even though you can also Mekayim Mitzvah D'Oraisa V'Nikdashim B'Sem K'nei Yisrael, the Minyan, a person doesn't have to jeopardize his parnasa in order to attend
The
Minyan.
guy's going to do that on purpose, and before you know, he starts by mistake, and then before you know, he's davening every day in his house because my parnasa.
Right. So no.
If
So we
it
said
happens once in a while.
for sure.
It's
Person.
not,
We said that tefillah b'yechidus ain't a doima the tefillah b'tzibor, that the Rebbe Shalom sometimes won't even listen to his tefillahs. That the Rebbe Shalom ain't a moyes, he doesn't despise, even if he would normally despise somebody's davening, he does not despise tefillah b'tzibor. Has a tremendous koyach, tefillah b'tzibor, tremendous koyach, that you can't ever underestimate. And chas v'chalila, the person should go ahead and unilaterally decide that, well, I'm potter from davening and it's my parnasa, chas v'shalom, first he's punishment at tzibor, and it could be that he's mamish putting in peril, he's putting at risk all his parnasa and all his health and his children and everything else, whatever, his family, because he's not davening b'tzibur.
If a person is exempt from going to shul because they're sick, let's say they have a fever and they feel very weak, when, if ever, would they be exempt from davening also, instead of just davening at the shul?
So if a person has stomach ailments, he's exempt from davening. And what?
The limit from davening.
What? It could be.
You can't daven?
It depends. Depends on the situation. Depends on the condition. Yeah.
What about like a
And
fever and they
If a
just
person's a
feel very
chayla,
weak
if he's in
and
bed,
all?
if he's in bed and he's a chayla, then he may not have to daven either. But every case is different. So a person should ask individual shalos, each case, each situation.
You also bring up something like in terms of using the bathroom and so forth, that it's something that, I don't know if it's like a halakha type of thing and people should be as stringent as possible, or if it's something that people become neurotic about, like how far should a person go with
So the Aruch HaShulchan says that we're not malachim. He says, and therefore, if a person, it feels that they're developing like an OCD about this, obsessive compulsive disorder or neurosis, about it, where he's always constantly cleaning himself and checking and this and that, he's clean, that then it's not healthy. And he says that a person should just get a Rabbi Yashav also, by the way, is a heintig, more heintig than, more contemporary than the Aruch HaShulchan. He was also asked a Shailot, and he said, as long as a person thinks that they're okay, then we're not angels, we're human beings, and a person could continue, could daven.
Okay meaning like just normal?
Yeah. Okay, next Shailot. Very interesting Shailot. Somebody asked me, it's a little perhaps late to address this, but I never did address it, so I promised that I would cover it. A person asked me after Yontif that he's a Levi, and he was asked to pour the water over the Kohen before Nesias Kamayim, before Duchening. And he said that there were a bunch of Leviim present, and there weren't many Kohanim. And he was told by somebody that that he can't participate because you don't need, since there's only 1 or 2 Kohanim and there were like 5 Leviim, there's a little bit of a disparity there. Therefore, he wasn't necessary. He was extraneous. No Jew wants to feel like they're extraneous, right? Chas v'shalom. Okay, but so you want to know what the halacha was about this, about such a situation. So it's a very interesting shaila. By the way, as far as us duchening, we know that in America, Ashkenazic population, those of Eastern European Jewry, we do not duchen. I was thinking that, and today, in such treacherous times, and we live in very, very frightening times, I was thinking that in order to get more shmira, in order to get more protection, maybe it would be kedai. I mean, I didn't do this myself, so I'm not going to advocate, I'm not going to advance it, but I was thinking that maybe it's a good idea that we should all go to Sephardic shuls at least once a week or twice a week in order to get the brachos of Nesias Kabayim, in order to get more shmira, because we all need more shmira now.
Everybody welcome.
Tuesday,
What?
Tuesday the tennis, and they definitely mincha as well.
They don't duchen twice, right? Now, as far as why we don't, in Eretz Yisrael, particularly in Yerushalayim, they duchen every single day. And it's the Kolboy was an early Ashkenazic authority. The Kolboy actually holds that, he says that the Jewish people from Ashkenaz, they should duchen on Yontif, which we do. We do at the Shalosh Regalim, we do duchen. But he says, and I see that, Baruch Hashem, we have a Kohen here, and we also have a Levi here. But as far as the Kolboy, he held that not only on Yontif did the Ashkenazim duchen, but on Shabbos also, which l'char is a das yochid, because I don't think anybody practiced that as far as duchening on Shabbos. The Maril, who was one of probably the earliest Ashkenazic Poisik, the greatest authority of Ashkenazic Minhag and Halacha, Maril says that the reason why we don't duchen, Ashkenazim don't duchen, is particularly in the diaspora in Chutz La'aretz, he says, is because in order to duchen, you have to have tefillah and mikvah. You have to immerse yourself in the mikvah. And he says that it's hard for people to go, they didn't have mikvahs in every block like you have today in Borough Park, and even in Flatbush you have many mikvahs available. He says, therefore, it's a challenge. It's very encumbering for Kohanim to have to be able to duchen, to go to mikvah, to dip themselves in mikvah before they duchen. And therefore, we don't duchen every single day. By the way, it's a chiddush atzum, because nowhere, I don't know of Makor, where he's basing it off, I'm sure he has a Makor, but that it says that there's a chiyuv, that it's ma'akev for a kohen to go to mikvah before he duchens. And then he says that because the reason why we don't duchen every day, another reason is because bittul malacha, because everyone is very entrenched and engrossed in their work, and they're distracted, their attention is diverted. And there's also Tircha de Tzibura, davening, you want to daven with Kavana, and davening could take close to an hour every morning. So therefore, to add the duchening would be a added imposition, it would be added Tircha, and therefore it's not advised, and that's why we don't duchen during the week. We only duchen on Yontif. The Ramah, or Moshe Islis, he says even further. He says that the reason why we don't like the Kol Bay, that we don't duchen on Shabbos, is because even on Shabbos, when we're off from work, we're still so preoccupied, because you have to understand, we live in the luxury of America. Baruch Hashem, we have so many liberties in America. Halavai, the prosperity of America and the liberties of America should continue to be Medina Shel Chesed, Amen, hopefully Bez Hashem Sparach. But you have to understand, in Europe, people were languishing, and people had very difficult lifestyles, where Parnasa, they were eking it out, barely, meager types of earnings. And therefore, even on Shabbos, when they were supposed to be free of, this being convoluted and being distracted, they weren't, because it was still foremost on their mind, the parnasa. And that's why he says that you can't have, duchening has to be done b'simcha, has to be done with equanimity, has to be done with serenity, has to be done with a sense of jubilation, and you can't have jubilation on Shabbos even. He says Yontif, he holds that on Yontif is already a time when people are free of their worries.
Rosh Chodesh, why not Rosh Chodesh?
Rosh Chodesh is the same thing. It's usually during the week, and then people have, too many. It weighs on their conscience, right? But it weighs on their conscience. As a matter of fact, Ramah says, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Ramah that says that that's why Musaf. When do we duchen? We don't duchen by Shacharis. We duchen by Musaf. You'll see. You never believe what he says. You ready for this? What? I'm sorry, Ashkenaz. He says, listen to Ramah. This is Ramah. This is what he says. You never believe it. He says the reason why by Musaf is because by Musaf already you're about to go home, you're about to eat. Because that's a true Sukkos Yom. He says because then if you're going home, you're going to eat. You're not having any worries anymore. That's interesting. Interesting. The Chatzi Lochem, right? Is the joy of Yom, being with family, eating, whatever it is. That's a very interesting perspective. But and we've said many times that the Vilna Gaon and Reb Chaim Volozhin both wanted to reinstitute duchening in Europe, and both times when the Vilna Gaon wanted to reinstate it, the day that he reinstated, that he made an enactment that they should duchen, he was taken into jail. He was incarcerated, of course, on false allegations, on libelous charges. And the day that Reb Chaim Volozhin wanted to reinstate it, there was a fire in the shul. So they both took it as simanim and shemaim, as Bas calls and shemaim, that it wasn't appropriate. Okay, but I still think that that it's a big schus, and there were great gedolim that when they came into America, they always participated in Minyan. Chaim Sheinberg only davened with the Minyan. Rav Steinman, when he came here, I think I'm not mistaken, I think he went to a Minyan that had the duchening. Okay, so now the halacha is it's brought down from the Gemara and cited of Lamates that kohanim have to wash their hands before Nesias Kapayim, and if they can't wash their hands, then they're not allowed to duchen. It's ma'akev. Imagine that. It's ma'akev. You can't duchen if you don't wash your hands. Okay, now the Shulchan Aruch in Kuf Chav Ches, what? Oh, right. If you wash your hands in the morning. But we are soymech on the fact that probably there was an interruption and the person went ahead, it was matami his hands, right? But b'di'evet, then a person allowed to be, if a person knows that he wasn't matami his hands and he doesn't have water to use before the duchening, then he's allowed to be soymech on the fact that he washed his hands netilas yadayim in the morning. As a matter of fact, there are poskim that hold. There are poskim that hold that you have to make another netilas yadayim. We don't. Lamaisa, we don't pass like the Aruch HaShulchan brings it down. I think he comes out that you know that we.
You're wearing tefillin. Same case on the weekday. You're wearing tefillin.
But we never b'duchen on a week.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay.
In
Eretz Yisrael, yeah.
You're wearing tefillin, so the Torah, you should not be.
You should have the time of your hands.
It's not the time
But that's why we don't make another netilas yadayim, because it's safek bracha, because maybe you already right. But it's a safeguard that we do it again. It's a safeguard we do it again. The Shulchan Aruch in Chuf Chav Ches Sivav brings down that who should wash the Kohanim's hands? The Levium. The Levium wash their hands. Now the Gemara doesn't say anything about it. The Gemara never mentions that the Levium should wash the Kohanim's hands. The Shailot is where we get this from. So the answer is that the source is the Zohar HaKadosh. It's based on Al Pi Kabbalah, that the Zohar HaKadosh says that there's extra Kedusha that the Kohanim get by being washed by Levim, because since the Levim are also Kadosh, they're also holy, all right? So therefore, they're being washed by people that are Kadosh, and therefore they're getting an added dimension, an added aspect of Kedusha. And the Aruch HaShulchan has another hesber. The Aruch HaShulchan brings down, because the Levim always have the supportive role in the temple, in the Beis HaMikdash, this is their supportive role, because there's no Beis HaMikdash today, their supportive role is to wash the hands of the Kohanim. Okay, now, it's very interesting because the Sefer Tznusa, which is also a book of Kabbalah, Vilna Gaon, that he says Levium should wash first. Before they wash the Kohanim's hands, they should wash their own hands first. Now, the Ramah says that the minhag today is that the Levium do not wash their hands first. They don't have to wash their hands first. The Mishnah Berurah seems to imply that they should wash their hands first. So I guess it's totally in the minhag hamakom whether the Levium should wash their hands first or not. Okay, but let's get to the Shailot that was asked. So again, there were several Levium, not sufficient Kohanim. All you need is one Kohen, by the way. You know, to do the duchening, you don't need more than one Kohen. What?
You don't need what I'm saying.
It's better. It's much better, of course. Yeah, it's a milo, right? You can't say the Shliach Tzibur.
That's the Kohanim.
What? He doesn't say Kohanim, right? If
Nothing.
there's a-
So how come he doesn't say Kohen?
I mean, why doesn't
I mean, they keep quiet.
they keep quiet? Yeah.
How come?
I guess it's not considered to be the ideal.
So how's the Chatzulis?
Chatzil Shaf, you should try, But Yotze, for sure, Yotze with one. For sure, Yotze with one. Yeah. So- I'm sorry. What?
The Ashkenaz Kohen down in the Sephardi Shul, does he go to the Birkat Kohen?
Yeah.
He does.
I mean, if he wants to exempt himself, he could just go out before the.
Why would he want to?
What's that?
Why would he want to? That's what's so safe.
Well, why do you want to exempt himself?
Yeah.
Right. But he's allowed. He's allowed as long as it's not the Shas mitzvah. He's allowed to.
There was a
He's
Kohen
allowed to.
who wouldn't.
If nobody was there?
I mean, if there's no other kohen,
Yeah.
kohen not then, because he's here.
There was a Kohen.
Because we stop with possible like the Rogachev who says that the same way there's a mitzvah for the Kohanim to bless, there's also a mitzvah for the people to get the bracha, Yeah.
There was a Kohen who didn't want me to wash his hands unless I washed mine first.
Oh, okay. So he's possible like the Mishnah Berurah. Okay.
There's no Leviim, the Kohen does.
Oh, so one second. So if several Leviim are present, but there's only one kohen. Let's say there's only one kohen. So Rabbi Yashiv says that you should not have two Leviim pouring for one kohen. Rabbi Yashiv, I think it's Rabbi Yashiv, or maybe another posek, more contemporary posek. I think it's Rabbi Yashiv who says the Shnaim Sha'asu, that when two people do an activity. Right, for example, on Shabbos. Let's say on Shabbos, you have to do a malacha, you got to do something on Shabbos. Let's say you have to carry something. So the better way to do it, with the shinoi, changing the way it's done. So if you have two people that carry the bench, then it's considered to be not a full malacha. It's not considered to be a regular malacha. All right, so he says shalei kedera. It's considered to be abnormal. It's considered to be a diminution of the malacha. So he says the same thing over here then. If two Levim are pouring from one guy, it's considered to be Shnayim She'asu. And it's considered to be detracting from the objective. Not everybody holds like that, because the custom in Chutz La'aretz is actually that if you have a few Levium, they all hold that they've got to get a big cup, one of those, big. Imagine a small cup, they're all like fighting over. And so some want to posit that the reason for that is that the distinction between Chutz La'aretz maybe in Eretz Yisrael, the Minyan and Chutz La'aretz is that a few people participate together. Is because since it's a rarity in Chutz La'aretz, since in diaspora, out in the exile, outside of Eretz Yisrael, it's not common to have duchening. It's only a few times a year, and therefore you want the Levium to feel like I got my Levi rights, because otherwise, what does a Levi do the whole year? How does he show his Levi rights? Unless he's called to Torah, He gets an Aliyah, yeah. I'm saying, but but Aliyah doesn't pass the That's not, it doesn't show the avodah. This is all showing like a shtickle of the avodah, right? So remember, it's a supporting role, the Aruch HaShulchan says. He says, therefore, that's a rationale, that's the reason why you would have a few Leviim do it together. Now, if there's no Levi, so then the Bach says, and I think the Taz also brings this down, and the Maral brings it down, that the Bechor should substitute for the Levi. However, the Sephardic land, it doesn't happen like that, because the Kaf HaChaim and the Ben Ish Chai, they don't hold of that. So, unless there was an incursion of Ashkenaz custom into Sephardic custom, really, Sephardim, if there's no Levi, then the Kohen should do it himself. The Kohen should wash himself. Because Kaf HaChaim and the Ben Ish Chai say that only a Levi and not a Bechor. So, the fact is very interesting, is that the reason why a Bechor, according to the Bach, the Taz and Maral, the reason Bechor, and anybody that has a Bechor, or anybody that is a Bechor, you should know the Bechor is Kodesh. Be very, very careful with the Bechor, right? Bechor is Mamash Kodesh. Is holy. The same way Kohen is holy, the same way a Levi may be holy, Baruch Hashem, is holy, so too a Bechor is holy. And therefore, the Bechor could substitute for the holiness. Oh, a Gvaldik Kohen right here, right? And he's a Bechor. We got a double whammy here, Baruch Hashem. No, Chasho, it's a Gvaldik thing. So you have double Kedusha, Mamash double Kedusha. It's huge. So I saw from the Orach Chaim HaKadosh and the Rabbi Yitzchok, they say that a Bechor will take over in the third bias, in the third temple. Imagine that. Another Bechor right here. Josh is a Bechor. And he's a father of a Bechor. And he's a son of a Bechor. You got all three generations here. So Bechor, they're going to be a very busy family, the Beis HaMikdash. The Bechor is going to take over the Beis HaMikdash. So what does that mean? That they're going to totally supplant the Kohanim? What does that mean? Don't worry, Michael, you're not going to lose your mayor, you're not going to lose your job, I hope. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen exactly. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. L'chora, there's going to be an ancillary role or something. I don't know, But the Bechor, the court of the Yonah and the Orach HaKadosh says in Beferish that the Bechor is going to be reinstated because the Cheta Ego, because the golden calf, they lost their privilege, the Bechor, but they're going to get it back in the third temple. Okay, so Lamarsa, practically speaking, we do over here that several Levium all joined in together with the cup, and that seems to be the Minhag HaMakom. So if a guy tells you, get away, I'm going to do it myself, you say, listen, I heard a shir, and I was told I should do it. Okay? All right, next. Last Shailot of the day. Very interesting Shailot. Somebody asked Shailot that Rosh Chodesh, we know we take off the tefillin. It's a little confusing, but we take off the tefillin during the part of the davening for Rosh Chodesh. Right before Musaf, we take it off. Now the Magen Avraham brings down, and Al Kabbalah it's brought down that you should take it off even for Hallel. So some communities, maybe you'll see that take it off for Hallel. Although it's not common practice, take it off for Hallel. Some say that you should take it off by the Torah reading, because the Torah reading speaks about the sacrifices of Rosh Chodesh. Our minhag is that we take it off before Musaf. When before Musaf do we take it off? We take it off after Uval Tzion, Ashrei Uval Tzion. Do we take it off? Remember, there's a Kaddish over there, and then there's Musaf Shmon Esrei. Do we take it off before Kaddish, or do we take it off after Kaddish? So there's Balatanya, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, he says you remove the tefillin before Kaddish. We don't do that. The Arizal says you do it after, right before Shmon Esrei. You take off your tefillin. I'm very careful that I go ahead. And I think this is brought down for Soloveitchik, if I remember correctly, to go ahead and to really not just leave the tefillin there, exposed and unwrapped, but to actually it's not a hefsek because you're involved in kedusha. To actually wrap your entire thing. Rabbi, so what do you do? No, what do you do? Do you leave it or you put it away?
I try to wrap it, but
I
always heard the opposite.
No, you should try. You should try to wrap it. Yeah, Mary, what do? You remember? What do? You wrap it or you leave it out?
Depends on how much time.
If enough time, yeah. So the emphasis, huh? Jeff, what are you saying?
Quite often they'll start.
They start too soon, right?
Enough time.
Right. So they make the klop. That klop, Practically speaking, I think the best mahalach is that everybody should quickly wrap it up, and they should wait for everybody to wrap it up, or not wait for everyone. Most people wait for most people. No, okay, but you see the
You're
Arizal.
holding the minyan, basically.
I thought you were supposed to start
Right,
as
okay.
soon as possible.
Supposed to start, yeah. So it's okay, but to leave the tefillin, okay. No, yesh v'yesh. There are opinions say that it's okay to leave the tefillin like that. But yeah, the machlokes between the Baal HaTanya and the Arizal. Arizal says you should take it off after Kaddish, right before Shemoneh Esrei. How the Baal HaTanya, who based himself on the Arizal, could argue against Arizal, that's a whole different discussion. There's a very, very deep discussion of how the Baal HaTanya, why the Baal HaTanya argues against Arizal as far as when to take off the tefillin. But we take off the tefillin. Most of us take off the tefillin right after Kaddish, right before Musaf. Now here's a shayla. The guy asked, very interesting shayla. He said he forgot to take off his tefillin. And he started Shemoneh Esrei. He said, Hashem safas ha'tiftach kishem Hashem ekru, kishem safas ha'tiftach. And he's wearing his tefillin. So what should he do? In middle Shemoneh Esrei, he should take off his tefillin? So Rabbi Yashiv paskins, it's brought down for Rabbi Yashiv, he paskins that if you're davening in a Nusach Ashkenaz, by the way, you see, it's better to daven in Nusach Ashkenaz. You see why? If you daven in Nusach Ashkenaz, then they don't say Keser by the Kedusha. Keser means crown. Keser, you know the Chumash, by the way, it's beautiful. All right, but then you can't do the Kabbalah. Keser Yidnulecha, right? They say Nekadesh, right? And so anyhow, but Nekadesh means we sanctify Hashem, but it's not the same thing as Keser. So some say that the reason why you take off your tefillin from Musaf is because you're saying Keser Yidnulecha, you're putting a crown on the Bar Shalom. How does it look if you're putting on a crown on the Bar Shalom and you're wearing a crown? Rav Simcha Zisel from Kelm, Rav Simcha Zisel, a broider from Kelm, said, that's actually based on the coming weeks, on this week's parsha, Vayechi, that when Yaakov Avinu passed away, so it says that on the entourage that was carrying his bier, carrying his coffin, all the kings from throughout the world participated in the funeral. It's one of the greatest funerals in world history, and they all removed their crowns in order to show deference to Yaakov Avinu. So he says, the same way, we take off our crown in order to show hachno, subjugation to the Bar Shalom. Yes, that's why we take off our crown. That's brought down from the Taz. The Teres Zakanim brings down that the reason why we take off our tefillin beforehand is because Keser, since Rosh Chodesh itself is like a Keser, you don't need the Keser tefillin. And really, the Rishonim bring down that since it's a Yontif, Rosh Chodesh is Yontif, so you don't need more than one ice. You have the ois of Yontif, the sign of Yontif, the covenant of Yontif. You have your bris milah, so that's already two. Alpi shnei adim yakum davar. You only always you're a witness. We're all witnesses. Don't tell the J witnesses that, right? For the there's a whole group of Goyim, sect of Goyim called the witnesses. We're the real witnesses. Okay, we're called the witnesses. Why? Because we have to be alpi shnei adim yakum davar. Alpi shnei adim yakum davar. It means that a Jew always has to walk around with two signs: the sign of bris milah, and the sign of Shabbos, or the sign of bris milah, the sign of tefillin. That's why in Shabbos you don't have to wear tefillin because you already have the two signs, right? So Rosh Chodesh is like a yontif, so you have the sign, and therefore you don't need the tefillin. That's why we take off the tefillin. So Rabbi Yashiv held that if you're davening Ashkenaz, you certainly don't have to take off the tefillin because they're not saying Keser, they're saying the Kaddish, so it's not a stira, because it's not saying a big crown. Even if you're not davening, so if you're davening Sfar, the best thing maybe to do is to make your tefillin that you're not really wearing it, you push it off to the side, cover up the shel yad more. There's different eitzes from the poskim about that. But I'm sorry, we have to wrap up, but I just want to point out that what about wearing tefillin? There are people that are very machmir, they wear tefillin all day long. They're holy Jews, and then they put on tefillin later on for mincha, they put on tefillin later on in the afternoon. Why not? It's a great thing to do. You get a mitzvah every time you wear tefillin, you're getting a mitzvah. So why shouldn't you do it? The great Rabbanim of old, they wear tefillin all day long. So if you have nothing to do during the day, you have a break, put on your tefillin. It's a golden thing, it's a beautiful thing. So the Ramami Pano, who was a great Makubal, a great posek from Italy, and the Chidah, they say that they pass it's after Musaf, it's okay to wear your tefillin. Again, even though l'chara it's still yontif, but they say as long as you're not davening the Musaf and you're not saying the Kriyas Torah of Rosh Chodesh, you're allowed to still wear your tefillin. However, the Rashash, that's the Mekubal Rashash and the Nahar Shalom say that it's not okay until Mincha. It's still the Zman of Musaf, and it's a stira to wear tefillin during Musaf or Rosh Chodesh, and therefore until Mincha. Once Mincha comes, you're allowed to wear the tefillin once again. And Reb Chaim Vital from the Arizal, presumably, he says all day long on Rosh Chodesh, once the time of Musaf comes, you're not allowed to wear tefillin because it's considered to be the entire day is considered to be yontif, it's considered to be Musaf, and therefore you're not allowed to wear tefillin at all. Okay, so that's the very interesting machlokes, but the person should be careful that they should take off the tefillin at the right time, and therefore they won't comment to the Shailot about wearing tefillin during Musaf. Okay, so everybody for listening. Thank you for coming. Anybody have any questions, quick questions or comments? We're here to address.
So back in the days when they used to wear tefillin all day long.
You can turn on. Yeah.